Good day all. The course code is still BOSS 315, course title Business Communication, study session 3, that is forms of business communication. Then the facilitator is still the same, Dr. Nana Usman Bature. Forms of business communication, introduction. In this study session, we will explore different modes of communication in business organization. We will take a look at oral mode, written mode, and mediated communication in business. We will also discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each mode of communication. The learning outcomes: when you have studied this session, you should be able to differentiate between the different forms of business communication. This is diagram for the modes of communication. You can see different forms of communication, types of communication in business: intrapersonal communication, interpersonal communication, group communication, mass communication, and extrapersonal communication. From the diagram here, let's look at it briefly, or let me discuss it briefly. Intrapersonal communication is that communication that takes place within the individual. That communication that takes place within you is called the intrapersonal communication. This involves the 5 sense organs in everybody, or on the body of every person. We shall see it later. Then interpersonal communication is that communication between 2 or more people. It can be communication between a lecturer and a student, a communication between an employee and the superior or manager. It can be a communication between father and child or mother and child. Then group communication is that communication that takes place in a group of people who have identifiable goal, and these people work towards that identifiable goal. You have boys, your association, you have NUAMS here, accounting, they have their own groups, and these people work together so as to achieve their goals at the end of the day. Then mass communication is that communication to a large population out there, and this is what we are doing now. Using what? We are using another channel to communicate to the outside world, and it has to be those we cannot see here. So if you want to communicate with large audience that you cannot see, that is where the mass communication come in, and you will have to make use of some gadgets, electronics that we are using now. Then the extra personal communication is that communication that takes place between machines, humans, machines, or machines and machines, and it is the advancement of our technological age. That one, we use them day in, day out, and it's part of what you are still using now. So let's go and see what we have on that. Types of communication in business, that we have been discussing extensively about business communication since the beginning of this session. In this unit, we will concern ourselves with the different types of business communication. Below are some of the business communications that exist or that do exist. You have intrapersonal communication there, where we have intrapersonal communication refers to that kind of communication that takes place within an individual, in which I have already explained. Then according to Weissman and Baker, 1967, that intrapersonal communication forms the base of operations for all communication. It is the reflection area for idea, thought, and feelings, and primarily for interpersonal communication. Indeed, every individual communicates with the aid of his or her 5 sense organs: the sense of touch, the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, smell, and that of taste. These different sense organs receive and process stimuli from the environment. Our reaction to events or other external stimuli is dependent on the manner in which our brain interprets the stimuli. For example, before you can understand this lecture, your eyes will need to perceive the words which are sent to the brain for decoding. It is only when your brain has assigned the appropriate meanings to each of these words you are reading in this lecture that you would get to understand what message I'm trying to convey to you. Therefore, intrapersonal communication is the bedrock of all forms of communication. The next is interpersonal communication, which is the kind of communication that occurs between two or more individuals in a face-to-face or via any electronic medium in a business setting. It includes such a day-to-day activities like the interaction between two friends, classmates, father and child, discussion between two business associates, between siblings. This form of communication is very functional in forming and sustaining human relationship. We are into group communication. This form of communication entails the interaction between members of an identifiable group, be it large or small. A group can simply be defined as a collection of people with what? Identical or identifiable goals. Discussion in a class, workshop, seminar, clan meetings, old boys association, group meeting, camp meetings, etc. are examples of group communication. The individual members of the group participate actively in the communication act to achieve predetermined goal or goals. The self-check question is there and the feedback. The self-check question and feedback are there for you. The next is mass communication. Mass communication refers to that kind of communication in which a relatively large and undifferentiated audience is reached through a mass medium. It entails the simultaneous delivery of identical message to a wide range of receivers. From this definition, we can deduce that mass communication involves a mass medium like radio, television, newspaper, or magazine, etc. The next is extra-personal communication, which is the product of our technological age, where messages are not only exchanged between humans, but also between machine and machine, as in the case of online computers or email. I have already discussed this briefly at the beginning of this lecture. In study session 3, you have studied the different types of communication that people in business organization participate in, such as intrapersonal, interpersonal, group, mass, and extrapersonal communication. These are different types of communication that take place in various organizations. Thank you.